Hey everyone, welcome in to another daily editorial here on the KE Report, a special video daily editorial and company introduction with Kobrea Exploration, traded on the CSE under the symbol KBX, on the OTCQB under the symbol KBXFF, and on the Frankfurt Exchange under the symbol F31. I am joined by Rory Ritchie, Chief Geologist and Director at Kobrea. Now, Kobrea Exploration is focused in Argentina. Company just accumulated a group of projects, all combined now into one project in Argentina, focused on copper exploration. Rory has put together a short presentation for us, really a highlight reel to talk about the area that the company's focused in, and now this combined project with the goal to drill for the first time on these assets next year. Rory, thank you first and foremost for putting together this presentation. Thank you for joining me. Let's get into this deck and discuss a little bit more the big picture strategy around Kobrea, please.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Corey. Nice to see you again. I'll get up and share my screen here. Hopefully you're seeing it in front of you now.
Looks good.
Perfect. Okay, yeah, so thanks for the intro there. Yeah, Kobrea, we went public in December of 2023 with the expressed interest of looking for heavy-hitting copper projects. We settled on Argentina about 10 months ago, and we came up with something pretty unique, and I'll touch on it here in the presentation. So the opportunity for Kobrea, we're able to acquire ground in a world-class copper district that is underexplored. This is in southwestern Mendoza province in Argentina, in the Neogene Porphyry belt. It is a world-class belt. We did have a bit of a first mover advantage. We caught winds in about January of this year that things were opening up down in Mendoza, so we were able to get a few months head start before the announcement was made public in April of 2024. And we acquired a group of projects. We're calling them the Western Malargue copper projects, over 700 square kilometers. Obviously, a lot of geologic potential, which I'll speak to, a number of porphyry prospects. And you are in the Andes, but here I'll mention the elevation is only about 2,500 to a maximum of 4,000 meters. So relatively straightforward as far as exploration and pretty efficient.
Rory, just take us through again that opening up of this Mendoza region. You got word of it, but now we've had some news. Just remind everybody what's happened in Mendoza, please.
Yeah, that's a big part of the story. So the province of Mendoza has had a few, I'll call them false starts in the past, as far as opening it up for attracting foreign investment and keeping everyone happy on the social side of things. But what they did this time around is quite clever. This was led by the governor of Mendoza and the Minister of Energy and Environment in Mendoza, and it was facilitated through a group called Impulsa Mendoza, and their vehicle adopted by the province of Mendoza to lay the groundwork and to attract foreign investment and to develop a modern and sustainable mining sector in Mendoza, largely based on copper and copper resources. And what they did, they kind of cordoned off an area of Mendoza called the Western Malargue Mining District. So this is the southwestern portion of Mendoza where they deemed it to have enormous geological potential, but importantly, no competition for the use of land or water with any other productive activity. So that's a big thing. As you get to central Mendoza province, there is agriculture, there are some wineries, there's a bit of oil and gas in the south, but they wanted to pick an area where there'll be no pushback environmentally or otherwise, and they did that by developing the Western Malargue Mining District. So they did it's very clever in a unique situation this time around. Shown here is the province of Mendoza in darker gray. That's the Western Malargue Mining District. It's about the area of Switzerland, and really what they did is they kind of sectioned off their own drainage basin. And I mentioned there's no competition for water. So this, there's no water flowing to the north or the northeast here. It's all kind of contained. And that's how they sectioned off this Western Malargue Mining District. Here you're looking at the projects. Again, very large, over 700 square kilometers. But importantly, nothing in this area had been drilled up until this year. It's literally the first time. So drill permits are being issued for the first time, and this is largely as a result of these baseline, broad sweeping environmental impact studies that were commissioned by Impulse and Mendoza. So that's a huge positive for companies such as ourselves trying to come in and get permits. Yeah, so that's a big part of the story. These are the geology's always been there, but now these targets are finally getting drilled. We have an option to acquire 100%. It's road accessible, 65 kilometers west of the city of Malargue, which has a regional airport, about 30,000 people, and the people of Malargue and the mayor of Malargue have shown their support for this initiative. Yeah, and so these are all big, broad sweeping factors that now allow us to come in and start to explore. Most recently, VALE Exploration was there 2010 to 2013. They did a bunch of good work on these claims. I identified a dozen porphyry targets, but again, back then there was no drill permits in sight, so they ultimately walked. So big part of the story, drill permits being issued for the first time.
Rory, let's stick on that for one more time. Go back to that. Let's talk about that option to acquire 100% then. It's over 5 years, mostly backloaded. Take us through that overall option agreement, please.
Yeah, it is a $6.5 million US deal. It is largely back-end loaded, so over that 5-year term, really the last couple of years is where most of that cash shows up. So that just allows us to evaluate, gives us 3 or 4 years to evaluate the whole project, because it is a big project. What else can I mention about
any work commitments early on here?
There's no work commitments as far as the deal itself. You're in Argentina, so you do have to come up with a financial plan to explore and abide by it. But no, really, it's just cash payments and keeping the claims in good standing. That's really the obligations there.
So some of these other diamond drill permits that you have in that second major point there, you're not planning on drilling this until next year once you work up these targets longer. How long approximately did some of these permits take to be issued to some of your neighbors?
Yeah, a matter of 1 or 2 months. And again, that's largely stems off the fact that environmental impact study has been done for everyone. So yeah, I mean, we're talking a matter of a few months.
Okay. And then VALE, they didn't drill. How much work did they do to identify these 12 porphyry targets? And do you have access to any of their data?
Yeah, we do have access to all the data. We have all the private, I mean, it is private data, but we got it from the vendors through a CA. They did some very good work. We figured they probably spent 4, maybe 5 million US. Back then there were no roads, so they were strictly flying around in helicopters, which is expensive, but they did a lot of good work. So we really see it as we have kind of a roughly $4 million head start on exploration. They did some sampling, they did some geological mapping, which is very useful. They did some geophysics. Yeah, so we'll lean on that data for sure. It is quality data. We just have to work up the targets to kind of a certain standard before we can start drilling them off. This is a big area with a lot of targets, so we got to make sure we can do a good job ranking and being successful with the drill.
Okay, perfect. Let's move on. Let's talk about what the projects were that all came together to make up this one asset.
Absolutely. So here you're looking at the right-hand side. I've tried to color code the different projects. Here's some images from each of those projects. Really, the takeaway is you have these big, what they call color anomalies, these big porphyry hydrothermal alteration footprints that are, multi-kilometer in scale. And again, some have been sampled, some have seen some mapping, some a bit of geophysics, but not a drill hole on any of these. So this is a very unique situation in this day and age. You don't see these things sticking out of the ground that haven't been drilled. So, and again, that's just based on the past and the fact that permits weren't being issued. So that's all changed. I'll touch on one of the targets. I'm not going to go through them all. That would take a while. But one in particular that's kind of relatively far along that exploration curve is El Perdido. It's towards the northern section of that northerly block there. It's a 2 by 3 kilometer hydrothermal alteration footprint. It has all the earmarks of a copper gold moly porphyry system, porphyry alteration, the quartz diorite porphyry intrusions associated with stockwork veining and anomalous copper, gold, and molybdenum geochemistry. And the geophysics looks great. That was all done by VALE. And this is, I'll mention too, this target is about 5 kilometers from that newly upgraded road that runs through this portion of the project. So that'll be useful to us. Looking at some of the mapping that VALE did, they did an excellent job. This takes 4 to 5 weeks, and they did a very good job here. And how they mapped was they mapped the alteration, that's shown on the left. They mapped the geology, and you use both in conjunction with each other. And really the takeaway is it's pretty textbook porphyry alteration zonation, and it's centered by an area of stockwork veining that has copper, gold, moly. It is largely leached out, but and this is where you see some of that higher temperature alteration. So what the mapping suggests is that you're seeing the tip of the iceberg, where you're not too high in the system, you're not too deep, you're just at the top of a high temperature kind of copper deposit that you got to test, obviously, but it seems to have some legs and some size, which is important. You need to make sure you have checked the box for that size metric right out of the gate. This is what the rocks look like. They are quite leached, but you still see copper hanging around in that leached environment, as well as some gold and some moly. And this is within that area of stockwork veining, and the geophysics suggests that you do have a sizable target at depth. Again, the magnetic signature is indicative of your potassic alteration, which is where your copper is found and associated with. And so the magnetics suggests, what the mapping suggests is that you have some of this high temperature potassic alteration coming to surface, but the guts of it is just below your feet there. And you're looking at a target roughly 900 meters across, 900 meters deep. So big target. Geology, geochemistry, geophysics looks great. It's all pretty textbook porphyry, and again, never been drilled. That's the big opportunity here. So really, the plan is to work up all the targets to this kind of status, rank, and drill the best targets.
Okay. And again, this is just one of the 7 projects that come together to form this Western Malargue copper project. Now, Rory, how much work are you going to have to do then to further rank these targets? You have this field season to do it. How much is it going to cost? What work should we be looking out for?
Yeah, so the field season we're in the astral summer down south there. So the field season is about late October to April, maybe late April. So it's actually coming up pretty quick here. And the plan is to spend around $1.5 million to fly a ZTEM survey, which that's a big survey that from the air that will cover the entire land package. And then we want to do some grid-based geochemical sampling and some ground magnetics at some of the high-ranking targets, and map as many of these prospects as we can. There's enough exposure, and if you can get some good porphyry geologists mapping these things, it's really beneficial for targeting with the drills. So that's something we can all take care of in this first season. Like I mentioned, roughly $1.5 million. And then, maybe towards the end of the season, we start building some road to some of these high priority targets. And then right away that following season, we can get in there and drill, let's say the best 3 prospects right out of the gate. And already we have a couple that are very compelling.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. How many do you need to narrow it down to? Sounds like around 3. Now, in one of the slides, it did say that VALE already worked up over 12 porphyry targets. Is that the general focus of where you're working on to build up more targets or refine them? Or could there be even other areas that VALE just didn't even hit here?
There could be, and that's a part of the objective with the ZTEM survey is that it'll not only highlight and show how big and how much potential these known porphyry prospects have, but you'll likely come up with a few other targets for testing. Some of these, there's some big broad valleys. You can have things sitting under there that don't necessarily stick out. But yeah, that's the kind of the idea with the ZTEM. But really, VALE, again, they did some great work that gives us a huge head start. We already know essentially where to focus at least some of our efforts. So yeah, it'll be a combination of the two, but largely it'll be those known existing targets that have seen some work, need a little bit more work, and again just haven't been drilled.
So Rory, I realize this is further down the road, but when you do start drilling these targets, How capital intensive is that going to be? We do hear from a number of companies that when you're trying to define, especially grow porphyry targets, that can be very expensive for companies. So how do you go about managing your cash while testing a multitude of porphyry targets?
Yeah, so down here, you know, the moderate elevation helps you. Up in, for example, the Vicuña district, which obviously is one of the most, you know, significant copper belts in the world right now. They're up around 5,000 meters. Things do get more costly as you get into those higher elevations, like, you know, internal combustion engines, they have a hard time running up there, things like that. So that modest elevation will help us, but we're probably looking around $500 US a meter all in, which is not that bad for this part of the world. As long as you can minimize the use of helicopters, which we feel we can based on the existing infrastructure. And then, you know, porphyry systems, they're drill intensive in the sense that, you know, you're drilling, once you make a discovery, you have to drill the deposit off. So you're drilling a lot of meters, but really, I mean, that's gold. That's almost any deposit you can think of. But the initial testing, if you have, these are big porphyry targets, if you can constrain them efficiently, you know, a couple holes and you should know if you're onto something significant. So really it's not too drill intensive and not too capital intensive right out of the gate. It's just if you make a discovery, well, then you have to drill it off. But at that juncture, well, we'd be pretty happy. We're not too worried about having access to capital at that point.
Okay. Rory, thank you very much for introducing Kobrea Exploration. Again, traded on the CSE under the symbol KBX, on the OTCQB under the symbol KBXFF, and on the Frankfurt Exchange under the symbol F31. If anybody has any follow-up questions for Rory regarding this company, please email me, fleck@kereport.com. Right now, the company's market cap, it looks like sitting a little bit north of $10 million Canadian. Rory, I'll follow up with you as we get some more news and the advancement of these targets. Thank you very much again for this introduction.
Thanks, Corey. Appreciate it.